I think the reason why it feels different is there is just common purpose, because we do have so many opportunities on the ballot in November. And there is such energy for change across the state that I hope, I pray that that will bring Democrats together to elect Democrats, because if the Democratic Party is not focused on that mission, then we're not going to win. So if we are focused on that common purpose, I just think the sky's the limit. You know, look at Georgia. I don't think we'll get there by November, but I think we will get there fairly soon.
Alrighty, welcome back to Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy now to be joined by the new vice chair of the Alabama Democratic Party, Caroline Self. And I got to say, I'm going to have to start with the same question that I did with Bobby Singleton when he told me he was running to be the party chair, which is, did you suffer a fall? What the hell? You know what? You get hit over the head? What happened here? And now, I know you're walking into a hornet's nest, but you've been doing this, been pounding your head against the wall for a while now. What made you run? What made you want to run? And then how does it feel to have won the position?
Well, I've been an Alabama Democrat since the day I was born. Like, this party is so important to me. And really, for the last 10 years, we have been beating our head against the wall a lot of times. So, I knew I wanted to be involved in the party because there's just so much potential in this state. Like, we're seeing it all over. Huge crowds are coming out. We're seeing a ton of Democratic candidate signs out. And I knew I wanted to be part of the future of the party, and I didn't know how. And then I got a call from Senator Singleton, and I said yes. I think he is going to be a transformative leader for this party. He is well respected and well liked by everyone. And I think that for us to move forward, we have to be that one party with one future. And so I said yes, because I think I've got some skills and know some people who can help us accomplish that. And I'm really excited about the future of the Alabama Democratic Party. And that is something that it has been hard to say for a very long time.
Right. It has. It really, really has. And, and that's not even really a knock necessarily on the people who were involved at the top. There's plenty of criticisms to go around, but at a point in this, it became, I think, those folks just kind of became synonymous with a party that was not succeeding. Let's don't call them failures, but a party that was not succeeding. And so I think that discouraged a lot of others from doing certain things. And I think there were a lot of times that there was a lot of criticism that was deserved, but there was also some criticism that was built in, I think, just because of the names that have been at the top while some failures happened. And I think that change was very important. And also, the margins there for Bobby Singleton to win over Randy Kelly was, it was a tremendous margin, more than 100 votes. I know that doesn't sound like much, but when you're talking about just over 200 or so, that's a lot of votes. And so I felt like this was way different than 2019. And I wanted to get your thoughts. Do you feel the same way, that this is different?
I do feel like it was different. When this happened in 2019, there was the meeting where Chris England was elected, was a member called meeting, and someone else was presiding, and there were a lot of people who boycotted that meeting. But because we had quorum, we were able to elect Chris England. This was pretty much all elected Democrats to the SDC in one room making this decision. And, it just felt different. That's a lot of the conversations that I've had before the election with members and after the election is just, it feels different. And I think the reason why it feels different is there is just common purpose, because we do have so many opportunities on the ballot in November. And there is such energy for change across the state that I hope, I pray that that will bring Democrats together to elect Democrats, because if the Democratic Party is not focused on that mission, then we're not going to win. So if we are focused on that common purpose, I just think the sky's the limit. Look at Georgia. I don't think we'll get there by November, but I think we will get there fairly soon.
Caroline, do you think that you guys are going to be able, and when I say you guys, I mean you and Bobby Singleton, do you think that you're going to be able to assuage the hurt feelings and the suspicions, assuage the hurt feelings and address the suspicions of people in the ADC who are not happy with this outcome?
I hope so. I know that we are going to make a very intentional effort to do so. One thing that's important to Chair Singleton and important to me is that this is going to be us listening to everybody and figuring out ways that we can come together. And I will say, how the meeting on Saturday was different than a lot of meetings in the past is there wasn't yelling, there wasn't screaming, people didn't run out of the room. And I hope that we can continue to have that tone, but also to invite everyone to be a part of this, because I think that's what hasn't happened in the past. And what I said in my speech, and I think it's very important to this, is that, I'm a storyteller. I've been a reality TV producer for 20 years, and we have to tell the story of the Alabama Party better, and that means sharing stories and hearing them from one another, but also then telling that unified story to everyone else. We now have 5 members who serve on the DNC. It's Chair Singleton, it's me, Josh Coleman, Charlie Staton, and Donna Foster. And we are all going to Austin this week. And we are people who have been on the opposite sides of challenges within the last couple of years. We are all going to Austin this week together, unified, ready to show the country that the Alabama Democratic Party is going to be different from here on out. And by different, I don't mean that anybody's not going to be in the party, just the tone is going to be different. We are going to be focused on coming together and electing Democrats. And I think as long as we stay along that path, it will be fine. But, Chair Singleton feels the same way, I think. We are here to listen to all of those concerns, because we want everyone to be a part of this party.
And I'll say too, David, just real quick.
Yeah.
I had a conversation yesterday with someone who had spoken to Dr. Reed, and Dr. Reed told him flatly that he's going to support Bobby Singleton. That is a way different tone. And I think, as we all know, as Dr. Reed goes, so does the ADC. And if that's going to be the way that goes, then I think that is a huge step in getting this and doing exactly what you were concerned about, is getting everybody kind of on the same page, because he made it very, very clear that he felt like the people had spoken at the meeting. That he was hurt that Joey did not get elected to the DNC. But he said, he understood kind of what went on there. But as far as leadership, he was not going to contest anything about Bobby, and he was not going to undermine him. That he respected him, and he was gonna support him. And I think that's a pretty big step forward.
I do too.
Well, I can understand. I mean, as we've talked about on the podcast, that's not entirely surprising to me, because, they're frat brothers. They've got connections outside of Alabama politics. But what I'm wondering, Caroline, is, have you guys had conversations with Joe Reed and with Randy Kelly, and are they going to actively participate in making the transition from where the party was to where you and Bobby Singleton want to take it?
My hope is, yes. So far we're 3 days in. This transition has been easy. Senator Singleton met with the staff yesterday. I believe I'm not sure if he actually spoke with Dr. Reed, but I know that's in his plans. And I have an email address. We are starting to where last time in 2019, a lot of those little things were harder. But, as far as me with Dr. Reed, I have such respect for him, and that he holds a very a very warm place in my heart. When my father died, Dr. Reed was the first person I got a condolence letter from. I want him to be part of the future. He needs to be, because while the future is important, the past also is. And as part of telling the story better, and this is something I want to talk to Dr. Reed about, and if he sees this, give me a call. But
he'll see it.
I think it's very important that we tell his story. And as someone who has a lot of experience in documentary video production, I would love to sit down with him for as long as he wants and capture that story, because I think it's important for all of us in coming together, but also important for generations to come to see where we have been.
As somebody who also does documentary work, I'm really glad to hear you say that. I think that is extremely important. And I know I've been, in my interactions with Madison County Democrats, I've said, a number of times through the years, that regardless of how you feel about Joe Reed, the man deserves respect, and his commitment. Again, you can agree or disagree with some things, but that needs to be honored, and it needs to be preserved. His contribution to history needs to be preserved. So I'm glad you say that. Now, let me ask you a question about Tabitha Eisner. She's the one who had the position that you had. Do you
Lots
think
of fun questions from David today.
I knew it.
Well, I have a reputation to keep up, Josh. You know how it is.
That's right.
So do you think that what Tabitha Eisner did with her over the past, however many weeks it's been, where she was, basically, at least from her viewpoint, pulling back the curtain or pulling back the sheets, whatever metaphor you want to use, to really say to people, Joe Reed and Randy Kelly are not doing for the party what they should be doing. First of all, do you think that contributed to your election and Bobby Singleton's election? And then B, do you agree with what she did and how she did it?
I don't know if it contributed or not. What Senator Singleton and I did was, to me, and I'm not going to speak for him on this, but to me, this was a family matter in that room. And what mattered to us was getting the votes of the elected members of the SDSC in that room. I have so much respect for Tabitha. She was excellent, I thought, on Saturday, as far as she tried to get Dr. Reed and Dr. Kelly to stick to the bylaws and to change the agenda around when it needed to be changed around. And so I have so much respect for her. And I do think that by doing what she did the last few weeks, she in some way sacrificed herself. I don't know if it is part of why we were elected, but I have so much respect for her. I would not have done it the same way, but also I want to move forward. And starting on Saturday, we have a new Alabama Democratic Party, and I don't think relitigating that is helpful for us as far as the moving forward that we have to do.
Okay, so let me ask you one final question then. What would you say is your, and maybe you haven't been in office long enough to have formulated this, but do you have an elevator pitch for somebody who is skeptical because of the past, because of the way that in the minds of, I know certainly some Black Democrats, race has been the backdrop for some of the things that have happened. What's your elevator pitch to somebody who's skeptical and maybe even cynical about your election and Bobby Singleton's election?
I don't have an elevator pitch, but Josh Moon wrote a really good one yesterday. So I encourage everyone to read that. But my elevator pitch is the same as Senator Singleton's. We need to build an infrastructure that's not just for elections. It's 24/7, 365. We need to become financially sound and raise money so that the Democratic Party can actually help candidates, which, I ran for state Senate a while ago. And, there was no help from the state party. And by help is not just money. Help is communication. Help is messaging. Help is candidate Zooms or meetings or whatever that makes you feel like you are part of something. And so that's important to me. And then also bringing in younger people, which, I was so excited on Saturday. We had 42 new at-large youth elected to the committee on Saturday. And those young people are excited and they're ready to go. And having been here before in 2019 and seeing a lot of those young people become disillusioned and no longer participate, we've got to make sure that doesn't happen again. And so we've got to make sure that everyone knows that we are here to elect Democrats and that everyone has a seat at the table.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's as bad as what people on the outside of politics kind of think of it when you talk about the Democrats are just they're in either disarray or they're getting hammered by Republicans. It's 60-40. Most of the time it's 55-45. And then the one thing people really forget is that in all the places where lots of people live, Democrats do very, very well. Huntsville, Birmingham, Montgomery, Mobile, Tuscaloosa, even over in Auburn, do pretty well. And also, that's where all the money is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's a really smart guy in the Alabama Democratic Party, and y'all, please don't tell him I said this, okay? But his name is Anthony Daniels. And please, God, don't let him know that I called him that, okay? Because I'll never hear the end of it. But Anthony, a long time back, he and I talked, and he has this plan about building from the ground up this party. And he started to implement it on his own when nobody else would. And that man has worked himself almost to death a couple times, and done some things. But along the way, I was skeptical, but he kind of proved to me that this thing could work. And I think that you kind of feel the same way, that there is a lot of hope and there's a lot of avenues for success. And despite what people think about this party, there are a lot of people who believe in it. And even more importantly, believe in a two-party system that forces compromise and forces people to come into the room and talk to one another. And so when you go out and now start this, is that kind of how you're focused on this? Is a ground up mentality, or is there some top level stuff that needs to be done first?
It is. It's a ground up. The most important thing right now in the first 30-day plan is Senator Singleton is going to start a listening tour across the state. I think that before we make a plan of what we're going to do, what the next four years look like, we have to be accountable to the people we serve, and that is Democrats all over Alabama. And I think that it's part of the reasons that we need change in Montgomery too, because a lot of what happens down there, and y'all know this, is top down. It's not what the people want and what the people need. And I think that for the Democratic Party to be successful, we have to remember that we are working for the people and we are there to make their lives better. And so I do think ground up for sure. I also think there are some things structurally that we need to do. We need a robust fundraising operation. We need to make sure that our data is correct and is helpful to candidates. We need to, give some candidates some tools and some trainings on messaging, on canvassing, and that's stuff that Leader Daniels and I have talked about a lot. Last session, I helped him start a social media plan with the House
Yeah.
caucus, and get the legislators involved in messaging in a way that they hadn't been before. And it's more of that, but all of that is for the same purpose of keeping voters engaged and informed, because engaged voters are going to get to the polls.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I would add in there, and this is way personal, but it's also, I think, true, and it's something he and I have also spoken about, and I've spoken about with a number of people. The media focus, and I know this is something that's in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And because look, he and I talked about what you were doing with the social media stuff, and it's been fantastic. It really has, and that's I've also got a pretty popular Facebook page, but
You do.
yeah. But that stuff matters, you know. I mean, that and having, you know, one of the ways that Republicans have been so successful over the years is having a number of reliable media outlets in which their messaging goes to and that their voters go to for those messages. And I, you know, listen, as an old school newspaper guy, sometimes that it kills me to say, but I also preach a lot about, hey, stop fighting reality. Okay. And that's the reality right now is we've divided up into teams and one team is not getting the message that the other team is getting. And so I think do you think I'm right in saying that is one of the primary focuses? That's where the focus has to be, at least one of the focuses, right?
It is, and it's something that I think he's going to rely on me a lot for. You know, I think we've had for the Alabama Democratic Party for the last 10 years. I mean, we've fought to even be able to stream meetings,
Yeah.
and that's something like I streamed on Saturday until my computer died.
Right.
A rather long meeting, and I think that the more things we can do that show not just the people in the room, but that are on social media, that Democrats are out in their communities. They are listening to people. They're answering questions. The more that voters are going to see, well, you know what? The folks on the other side are nowhere. They're not answering any questions. And I do think that voters are ready for change now. They may still think they're Republicans, but they also know they don't see their elected officials, and they don't answer the questions. So I think that if we can just appeal to people and listen to people, that we are going to surprise some folks in November.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think that so often in that it's just a matter of really countering their messages a lot of the time, and that's not been done. And I mean, it used to be you could rely on mainstream media folks to do that, but to tell the truth about things, and I don't say that they're not, but it's you're not countering two kind of equal viewpoints. You're countering just complete bullshit over here. I mean, just utter nonsense and outright attacks on people personally. And then there's the Democrats coming in, but listen, here's the policy points that we would like to go over with you, and I mean, and you know what I mean? It's not being fairly presented in that platform. And I think there needs to be a counter to that, because if they knew that the overtime tax repeal was a Democratic idea, if they knew what, everybody's ideas in the Democratic Party were for data centers, if they knew what everybody's ideas were for hospitals, rural hospitals and healthcare and lowering healthcare costs, and they could, most of it is exactly what you hear from those people in those rural communities that have made up the base of that party for so long, that you have to start thinking, if they could hear that message coming from people, that it would resonate to a certain extent.
I think Josh is making a good point about messaging, Caroline. Messaging is definitely a problem. And I think he's right when he says that the messaging that Democrats have been and articulating, at least amongst ourselves, could be very effective because it is very much in line with the concerns of a lot of people who may not be Democrats or inclined to vote for Democrats. But my question, though, is Josh's point about messaging aside,
Mm-hmm.
are you convinced? You said you think we're going to surprise some people in November.
Mm-hmm.
Are you convinced that you're really going to be able to overcome the challenge of, the demonization of the D, that D label? Are you really going to be able to overcome that?
It's tough because the attacks are pretty outrageous now. And y'all both know that the Republicans are going to have more money than us going into November, which means they're going to be on TV. And we likely will, but it won't be to the extent. But people get their information differently now. I think we can overcome the millions of dollars spent on TV ads. I mean, look at what happened in May. The Republicans spent $40 million in the primary, and their turnout was down by 25%, and Democratic turnout was way up. So I think that is just a little bit of evidence that all of the money and all of the ads don't work. What I think does work, and it's what y'all are doing too, is people see when things aren't authentic. An ad is not that authentic. It's usually very produced. It doesn't feel real. They know they're being sold something. It's the messaging outside of that. It's conversations like we're having here. It's short clips from town halls or listening sessions or speeches, but that appeal not to people's brains, but to their heart and their soul. Because if you feel that somebody has your back and that somebody is going to go to Montgomery and work for you, then I think and I may, we had a pretty exciting day on Saturday, so I may be a little overly optimistic right now, but I think that people will understand that Democrats are not the demons that some in the media make us out to be. Because when you meet someone and you spend some time listening to them and seeing them listen to other people, you just see folks differently. And so the more that we can cross the partisan divide to talk to one another, I think the more success we'll have as Democrats. But, we had, I was with Senator Jones at a town hall about maybe a month ago, and a lady got up to the mic and she said, I'm a Democrat. I'm a Republican. And he goes, I'm sorry. And he walked down the aisle and he hugged her. And it was a joke. And then she said, he said, that's okay. And then he hugged her. And she said that she was voting for the man. And that moment has, across platforms, over 1 million views right now. It's a minute clip. We didn't spend $1 on it, but because people saw humans interacting, I think that's what resonated on social media. And so I think that more that we can get those human moments out there, I think that's in a lot of ways a much more effective contrast to, no, I'm not a communist or whatever it is that's the word of the day, is just making people see the contrast.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't disagree with a word there. I think that all of it works, and I think also too often we think of it as just kind of zero sum, and or it all has to be taken in at one time.
Yeah.
And what is typically happens is, you mentioned Georgia. At Georgia, when the change occurred, it was incremental steps. And nobody realized there were incremental steps, but everybody saw the end result and was like, holy shit, Georgia, what is that? But they didn't see the 15 years of buildup that took place with Stacey Abrams and some of the other folks that worked so hard on the ground to build from the ground up, to grow the bench, to really focus on those suburbs around Atlanta. It was all part of a plan, and all of it too was it was so much about the message, and so much about convincing other people that, hey, those folks that you've been told to fear and who've been used as boogeymen, for so long, they're not that different. You're not that different from you. You all want the same thing. And, those suburbs around Atlanta are pretty much as white as they were 10 years ago. All right. Yeah. But they realized somewhere along the way, because they had a lot of black neighbors, that, you know what? This whole boogeyman thing ain't working anymore. We need you to actually focus on some substance here, and I feel like that could work here as well, in a lot of places around here. And I think you're already seeing it a little bit with some of these policies, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think just the crowds that are coming out for Democrats. We are now seeing rooms filled all over the state, no matter where we are. And I think it's there's not one moment that's going to fix everything, but it all compounds. And the more our candidates are having events, and I mean, this goes back to the beginning of the year or even last year, we have so many great candidates up and down the ballot, and every single one of them is working hard in their communities. They're not relying on spending millions of dollars on TV to win. And I think that over time, people see that. They're like, oh, that person's back. And then maybe, the third or fourth time they hear about it, somebody who hasn't voted for Democrats, like, I'm going to go check this out. And so it's not going to happen overnight. And I don't want anybody to think that. And, we're not going to all of a sudden have majorities in the legislature in November. It's not realistic. I think we could win some statewide races because this is a moment that the opportunity right now is just, we haven't seen it in a very, very long time because people are fed up with a government that does not work for them.
Yeah, I think I saw something Sunday afternoon. I went to a candidates forum here in Huntsville at the Progressive Union Missionary Baptist Church. And I have to be honest and say I wasn't expecting the turnout that I saw. There were probably a few hundred people there. Philip Ensler was there, even though he didn't speak. He was there. And, Anthony and Laura Hall were there, and they spoke, actually, and some other Madison County candidates. Are you guys, do you have a plan for engaging the black churches?
We do. I mean, that's actually Leader Daniels is who y'all need to talk to about that. But there's going to be a very strong effort made for that. And my hope is, and this is what I've said to everyone I've talked to about it, is whatever we are building this election season cannot go away on November 4th. And it's got to be consistent, because the consistency matters. It matters on social media. It matters in communities. Because it speaks to authenticity. If somebody just shows up when it's a month before an election, you don't believe that it's real. Yeah. So that is something we have to do. Make sure that everybody that volunteers before November stays engaged for the next 4 years, because what happens in 2028 and 2030, it starts now. And so that's something I think it's most important to us, is really the communicating with Democrats throughout the state and figuring out how we can work together.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I think that things are on a good pathway right now. I think there's a lot of buildup, and it's also nice to have what I feel like is a unifying group of people at the top of the party. With you and Bobby, and and just I feel like a lot of people now have a lot more trust and faith in what's going on. I really do feel that was one of the things that carried the room. It wasn't an anti-Joe Reed vote. It wasn't an anti-Randy Kelly vote necessarily. It was more of a, hey, Bobby's a good guy. And we've known him for a long time. He's got a lot of connections, and Caroline, she knows what she's doing. She's been doing some good things. And I think that those feelings, those positive feelings, carried the day more so than the negative feelings. And I think that's very, very important for the party and for everybody else. But Caroline, thank you so much for coming on and also, jumping into, I think Bobby called it a hornet's nest. We'll go with that. And spending some time with us as well. We really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for having me. This has been great,
Yeah.
and we appreciate the work that y'all do too, because the messaging is important, and every week y'all make sure that people are informed, and it's great. And
we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best out here
Yeah.
to let folks know there's another point of view, and that there's some people out there, some good people, some good, smart people who are informed and who are fighting for them on their on the issues that really matter to them. And so we're going to keep it up as long as they'll have us. So we'll keep going. Thank you, Caroline. We really appreciate it.
Take care,
Thank
Caroline.
you. All right.
All righty. That's we're going to slide out. We'll come back, wrap this thing up. It's Alabama Politics This Week. We're back in a moment.